Great. All right. So for our agenda today, I'll go ahead and kick us off with an icebreaker just to get to know each other a little bit better. I know some folks on this call haven't actually met each other quite yet. And then we'll talk a little bit about United Way's issue areas, a little information about the Connect for Good program. And then I'll pass it over to Casey on this call, who's our community services expert. And then following that, we'll kick it over to Lindsay, who will be guiding us through our peer-to-peer fundraising pages, any tips and tricks. And then we'll come back around and I'll wrap us up and prepare us for our second session. So for our icebreaker, I was hoping that we could each go around, share our names, our pronouns, and what we're looking forward to this fall, now that we're in the fall season. And I'm thinking I can maybe kick us off with that, and then I'll pass it over someone. And if we could all kind of keep that going and pass it on to another person, that'd be great. So I'll start. My name is Ozma. My pronouns are she and her. And what I'm looking forward to this fall is being able to kind of cozy up indoors, watch some movies and TV shows. I am really looking forward to a couple of TV shows that are having seasons coming back this fall, including Insecure and You. I don't know if folks are familiar, but those are some really good shows that I'm looking forward to. And I think I might pause my screen recording so we can all kind of look at each other as we share. And I think I'll pass it over to, how about you, Rahi? You want to go next? So it's name, pronoun, and what you're looking forward to this fall.
Sure. I'm Rahi. My pronouns are she and her. Something I'm looking forward to this fall. Yeah, just indoor activities. I have a bunch of books I need to read. I'm hoping to get back into watercoloring that I was doing earlier last winter. So lots of that generally. And I will pass it on to Anand.
Hello, folks. My name is Anand. I've been with Microsoft for 9 years, 2 years in identity. So have been involved with United Way for a few years now. So this year I could get an opportunity to blend the identity and United Way groups together. This fall, I'm looking. Actually, I started watching Squid Game because of all the articles that I read about it. So, also looking forward to Stranger Things, the next season. So, yeah. So we'll go alphabet-wise, I guess.
I
Casey.
think yeah, there we go. Just whoever.
Sure. Hi, I'm Casey, she, her pronouns. Yes, I'm looking forward to, my partner's going to teach me how to ice skate because he used to play hockey and I have no idea how. And his goal is to teach me how to ice skate so he can teach me how to ski, which I also don't know how to do. So I'm just hoping I don't break a limb because I do martial arts, and if I don't have a limb, then that would suck. I'll pass it on to person who just turned on his camera, Jacob.
Sure. Hi, everybody. My name's Jake, or Jacob. He, him, my pronouns. Speaking of hockey and skating, I'm actually really looking forward to seeing the Seattle Kraken start their season in a couple weeks. I grew up in Michigan, which is a big hockey place, big hockey town. So I'm excited to have some hockey here in Seattle. So nice to meet everyone. And I'll pass it off to Chloe.
Hi there. My name's Chloe. My pronouns are they, them. What am I looking forward to this fall? So I just moved here like earlier this year, from California, where there's not really any seasons. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing the weather get gloomy and with the trees kind of like very colorful. Because in California, the trees just kind of turn brown, but over here, they like actually turn like yellow and orange and red. So I'm actually really excited. It was raining today, and I was like, "Oh wow, it's fun just walking out and seeing the weather." Oh yeah. I guess I'll pass it on to Lindsay. Oh wait, external? I don't know what external means, but oh, sorry.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Lindsay. I'm a part of United Way's development team. So I fundraise for United Way. My pronouns are she, her. And I think what I'm most looking forward to this fall is attempting my third go around at knitting a blanket, or I guess crocheting a blanket. I've had a loom for forever and have never actually fulfilled that. So I'm hoping to get my craft on and finally finish up that project this year. And I'll go ahead and pass it on over to Holly.
I love that. Yeah, I'm Holly. My pronouns are she, her. I'm part of the United Way committee with Rahi and Jacob, and Anand and Ram, and pretty much everyone on this call. But I am most looking forward to my wedding, which is actually 37 days away, but who's counting? 11/11, I am getting married in Mexico. So that's definitely going to be the highlight of my year. All things considered, hopefully it goes well. I will popcorn it to Haley.
Yeah, hey everyone, good afternoon. My name is Haley. My pronouns are she, her, and also very much looking forward to lots of good TV and movies. I think someone mentioned You and Insecure, also two big ones for me. And then I would say the penultimate viewing experience for me this fall will be seeing the Dune movie. I'm very, very, very excited for that. Big Dune fan, big science fiction fan. I will popcorn to Jessica. Have you gone yet?
Hello, I'm Jessica Cottle. I'm an engagement coordinator at United Way. I use she and they pronouns. I'm supporting the Microsoft campaign, so your Give Month activities, the auction, car calendar, things like that. So thank you all for joining us today for the Connect for Good. Things that I'm interested in this fall. I like fall fashion. Boots. I wore my boots today for the first time. I broke them out of my closet. Scarves. I'm all about it. I like to be cozy. And I'll share with Ram. Have you gone yet?
I have not. Hi, I'm Ram. My pronouns are he, him. I'm looking forward to this fall, seeing a lot of fall colors like how people have mentioned. I can see some outside the window right now, and it's been great seeing them coming back. Maybe go out for a small hike somewhere. Yeah. And I'll get to who hasn't gone? Devanshi?
Yeah, sure. Hey everyone, I'm Devanshi. My pronouns are she, her. And this fall, I'm really looking forward to possibly going to a pumpkin patch and just like apple picking because I didn't get to last year. And definitely lots of indoor activities like painting, TV, candles.
All right, I think that was everyone. Anyone we're missing? Great. Well, thank you all for sharing. It sounds like some of us are really into TV, some of us are into some knitting, crocheting, lots of artistic folks in this group. So with that, I think I'll go ahead and share a little bit about United Way's focus areas, and then we'll pass it on to our community services expert. Sound good? Great. Give me one moment while I figure that out again. All right. So United Way has a few different focus areas, including fighting homelessness, helping students graduate, and breaking the cycle of poverty. So we do this work through a number of different programs and funds with a racial equity lens because we know that a lot of our issue areas continue to disproportionately affect Black, Indigenous, and communities of color. Because these issues are really an issue at a systems level, we do a lot of work at the policy level to address them. And we do this through our public policy and systems change work. So the Connect for Good in particular is an in-depth learning opportunity where we invite groups to build community through a virtual volunteering. At least it has been since the pandemic hit. It's been a great way to connect with folks and do this program virtually, to rally around one cause, learn from experts in our community services and fundraising teams, and then work together on a volunteer project and fundraise to work collectively towards a specific goal. So we're hoping that this Connect for Good will be a really great opportunity for all of you to learn specifically about our community food fund and our partnership with Afghan Health Initiative, to come together to fundraise a specific goal number together, and to hopefully we'll introduce in our second session some volunteer opportunities that you have the option to participate in. So I think with that, I will pass it over to Casey to kick us off with our first education session.
Sure. Thanks, Ozma. I will get the screen share going and introduce myself. Looks like somebody's waiting in the lobby. That one. Alrighty. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, unfortunately, I can't get this Microsoft thing to go somewhere else, so hopefully it won't obstruct my view. Anyway, so yeah, I am Casey. I am the outreach coordinator, Vista, with United Way. I split my time between the Community Food Fund and our free tax campaign, which is another one of our signature program. And if anybody on this call is interested in learning to do taxes for the community, send me an email because I'm always fishing for volunteers and tax season is approaching. Anyway, I liked this particular icebreaker someone hit me with in a coalition meeting. So feel free to give me your opinion on how you feel about pumpkin spice. I, for one, am a big fan of pumpkin spices because I use them in cooking all the time. And I think that they have a bad rap because it's not just pumpkin spice lattes, man. You can put cinnamon in your sauces. You can put allspice in your sauces, and I recommend it. So that's my opinion. Hit me with your opinion.
We're getting some mixed reviews in the comment section.
Okay, I can't see them, but a
We've got
review
some
upon my
nays,
exit.
some yes, but in moderation.
Nice. Okay, cool. Well, I will see what you guys have to say when I exit out. So yeah, let's just dive right in. So today I'm gonna talk to you guys about food insecurity generally, and I'm gonna talk to you about food insecurity in King County, and I'm gonna talk about it in the context of the before times and now the COVID times. And from there, we'll be moving into the Community Food Fund, which is the grant that I manage. And then we will be moving to Afghan Health Initiative, one of the Community Food Fund partners that I'm hoping we can raise some money for or whatever for, because they're doing some hard work right now. So yeah, let's just talk about some food insecurity. So generally, when we say a term like food insecurity, we're talking about people who run out of food before payday, people who are worrying about where their next meal is going to come from, eating poor quality food, cutting back on portion sizes, and relying on inconsistent food sources such as emergency food sources or friends and family or church, what have you. So one way of visualizing it is this upside down kind of pyramid that the USDA came up with. Those top two brackets are considered food secure by the USDA, and the bottom two brackets are considered food insecure. So those two brackets, if you hear that term floating around, this is specifically what the USDA is referring to. About 1 in 9 Americans, or 37 million people, and of that 11 million are children, exist in those lower two rungs. So those are rungs where people have had to either reduce how much food they're eating, or the quality of the food they're eating, or have actually gone and skipped meals. About 4% of households in the US, or about 5.3 million households, exist in that bottom rung, which means they have, at some point in this year, skipped meals to get by. So that's one way we visualize it. Now, obviously, you know, hunger and food insecurity and poverty affect people differently, right? And there are brackets that are affected more. So one of them is when we talk about ethnicity. So kind of one of the most significantly impacted populations in the US are African Americans, because although half of the food insecure in the country are white or non-Hispanic, the rate of food insecurity is twice as high among African American households. And in fact, about a quarter of African American children are food insecure. BIPOC children are more likely to go to school without having had breakfast. There's tons of stats like that floating around. And 8 out of 10 of the counties with the highest rates of food insecurity are 60% African American. 9% of African Americans experience deep poverty, so they live below 50% of the federal poverty line, which is already a very low rate. And Black neighborhoods on average have fewer stores where they can buy food in their communities. So that's kind of the outlook for when we're talking about Black populations experiencing food insecurity. But Hispanic households also experience high rates of food insecurity, but it's kind of for different reasons. Their situation is one where oftentimes those households have people working, but they often still require assistance from emergency food networks due to low wages or due to seasonal work that doesn't give them enough food to eat at all times, or they may make enough during the summer or the fall, but then once winter comes around, a lot of those seasonal jobs will dry up, and they, at that point, may have to turn to community centers to help them. We also know that a lot of Latinx people are on SNAP, but many are not eligible to receive it because many Hispanic community members are not able to be on SNAP because they are not citizens or they're just here seasonally. And SNAP has a lot of requirements to be on it. So, and while SNAP is a very important source of aid, unfortunately, this population oftentimes isn't able to get it. Now, Indigenous people are actually the hardest hit in the US when we're talking about food insecurity, about 400% more likely than white families to report being food insecure. Most counties in the US that are Native American experience high levels of poverty, even though they're only 1% of US counties. They have high levels of SNAP participation, but low levels of access to high quality food to purchase with SNAP. And unfortunately, most tribal lands aren't able to run their own food distribution programs. And although they get this special federal bolster called the USDA Food Distribution Program on Indian reservations, usually provides less than $1 a meal. And unfortunately, a lot of reservation land isn't suitable for hunting or for growing large-scale food. So that is one piece of it. Another piece of it is that urban natives actually often have higher rates of food insecurity than people living in reservations, often because they are very, very low percentage of county populations, usually less than 1%, which isolates them from tribal resources or culturally appropriate resources. And unfortunately, that leads to them being the most grossly misrepresented in food insecurity data. But it doesn't just cut across racial lines. Seniors and children are also really hard hit across all ethnicities. It is unfortunate that over half of seniors have to choose between paying for food and paying for medical care. And although there are a lot of seniors eligible for SNAP, about half of them don't get it. And in children, it's not maybe surprising when you think about it, but you know, the more mouths you have in a household, the harder it is to feed everyone in the household. Most, I'd say, according to stats, it's less than 1%. It's 0.6% of children have been reported missing food or missing a meal, even if they live in a food insecure household, but that is still 213,000 children every year who miss meals due to lack of food and lack of money to purchase food. And that being said, 84% of parents report buying cheap food rather than healthy food because they simply cannot afford to buy enough healthful food to feed everyone in their family. So it's also rural communities. More people in rural communities are poor and report food insecurity than people who live in urban areas. And that often has to do with, well, urban areas have more support systems in place, more access to places that will take SNAP, more places that can offer food assistance, like food banks, like community centers. And although a lot of rural areas do have churches, they may not be tied in with the emergency food network that urban areas often have, let alone the funding. And the majority of counties that are impoverished in the U.S. are they're rural counties. But in general, kind of the root of it is that the poor are the most vulnerable to food insecurity. 93% of people who are food insecure are in non-temporary housing, which means houses and apartments. Often over a quarter have moved multiple times in the past year. They are likely underemployed, so they may have more than one job. So stringing together a bunch of part-time jobs. But many, over 40%, are out of the workforce entirely due to disability, or they've aged out of it, or they're too young to be in it, or they're in poor health. Most have unpaid medical bills, and most of them are at or below the poverty level, which, as you can see, is $25,000 for a family of four, which is not a lot of money. There are three main factors associated with food insecurity that the USDA has identified, which are low wages, annual inflation, and increase in relative price of food. So, being said, let's talk more specifically about King County. All of those things are true here, but you know, let's be more specific. So over 200,000 people in the county are reporting being food insecure. So they occupy those last two rungs on that pyramid from earlier, and that's about 10% of the county. Only around 42% are, 42% are above the income eligibility to receive SNAP, which means they make too much money. Here in Seattle, food insecurity is still really high, even when you make 300% of the poverty line. SNAP benefits and whether or not you can receive them are tied to how close you are to the poverty line. So kind of the moral of that story is people here make far more than what the poverty line and what SNAP are adjusted for. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that food prices here are really high, gas prices here are really high, and that is what's kind of been shoving people further and further from the central part of the city. And in terms of when we talk about emergency food distribution systems, people often think of food banks. And yes, food banks distribute over 22 million pounds of food each year. However, only 10% of their budget each year actually goes towards buying food. They mostly rely on donated food, which is often inconsistent, lacks staple items, not just staple, but culturally appropriate items like kosher foods, halal foods, vegetarian food. It might be undesirable, close to expiration, or unhealthy, right? It's just something someone picked up and threw in a bucket and donated to a food bank. And most food banks just don't have enough money to buy their own food. They're spending most of their money on rent and paying what little staff they can afford. But that all being said, for every one meal that a food bank will provide, SNAP provides 12. So keep that in mind. That's how important SNAP is to the community. And 42% of the county who are food insecure are not able to be on SNAP. So this is another kind of way of looking at it is geographically. Now, this is just the city of Seattle. Unfortunately, King County doesn't have a nifty little map like this. But in public health, we've sort of moved away from talking about food deserts, which is kind of a popularized term, but it isn't really, in my opinion, that useful because, you know, go to South Park, which is considered historically a food desert. You'll see food everywhere. And you'll be like, well, it's not a food desert. I see food. Well, yeah, but that's not the whole picture. So think instead of a food swamp, which are areas where there are 4 times more unhealthy food outlets than healthy, or about 4 corner stores per quarter mile. Now, when we talk about healthy, we're talking about stores that sell fresh produce or fresh whole foods. The unhealthy bucket that will land you on the food swamp index is like a restaurant, a quick service, coffee shop, gas station, and fast food, desserts, pubs, and any kind of a grocery that lacks whole foods items. So as you can see, the food swamp index in King County, it's kind of swampy everywhere. And that's kind of an unfortunate result of how we as Americans subsist. But you can see when overlaid next to federal poverty line, you can see how high the food swamp index is in neighborhoods that are also quite poor. So these darker areas on the map, or in this case, the green area of the map on the right map, these are areas that are impoverished. And you can see that the food swamp index, interestingly, pretty well correlates there because unhealthy food options far outweigh healthy food options in those neighborhoods. So if we zoom out a bit, because King County is bigger than just Seattle, this is where poverty in King County actually really is. It's south for the most part. There are pockets of it in different parts of the county in Seattle, but for the most part, a lot of it is when you get south. It's towards Kent, it's towards Auburn and Federal Way, all the way down. So, and unfortunately, King County doesn't have as good statistics like this for that. So you can only imagine when you start getting to these more rural areas like Kent, which is why we try to concentrate a lot of services down there because that's where the need is most. So COVID happens, right? Food insufficiency basically doubled overnight once the closures happened. Food became the second most common reason that people were calling King County. And unfortunately, BIPOC people were highly were highly disproportionately represented among the callers who were seeking food assistance. So why did that happen? Well, partially because a lot of people lost their jobs and they couldn't afford to buy enough food. Part of it was because the emergency food systems didn't have culturally relevant or dietary specific food for them. Individuals were afraid or didn't want to buy food due to concerns related to the pandemic. In short, a lot of people went hungry very quickly, and the community food fund was sort of born from that. Let's talk about the food fund a bit. Where'd it come from? Well, as you might remember, the CARES Act was passed back in March 2020, which was a big bucket of money that kind of went all over the place and to distribute food aid. Now, a little piece of the CARES Act was called the Coronavirus Relief Funds. And that was just a big old bucket of money that was to be spent on COVID relief funds. The city of Seattle received the COVID relief funds and said, I don't know what to do with this. So they contacted United Way and said, hey, can you spend this money for us? So we did. United Way created an RFP for a grant called the Community Food Fund. Over 40 local community-based organizations applied to it. One of our stipulations was that the funding go to feed BIPOC people or immigrant and refugee-led programming. 27 of the 40 odd won the bid, and we distributed money to them. And in 2020, they distributed money to 40,000 unduplicated individuals. So those weren't one-time distributions. Those were many, many, many distributions to over 40,000 people. These were largely, almost entirely people of color. These, a lot of them were to elder programs because elders were really hard hit by the pandemic. When you think about it, isn't that surprising? Most of them were sheltering in place. Most of them were dependent on community resources where they would come into community centers, hang out together, eat together. They go to the Filipino organization, eat Filipino food. They go to the East African organization, eat East African food. Suddenly all those things went away and they didn't have it anymore. So elder care, child care, families with lots of children, but also there were a lot of single people, a lot of homeless. So that was kind of the face of that. 2021, the city of Seattle contacted us and was like, hey, we like the Community Food Fund. Let's do it again. And it was like, yeah, let's do it. So in combination of money from the city of Seattle, which is from the sweetened beverage tax. So all of you guys who maybe were here when that was passed, wondering where that money went, well, it's gone to fund community programs, one of which is the Community Food Fund. So we took the sweetened beverage tax, some of our own internal funding, and we funded 13 previous community food fund organizations. And right now that money is being spent to help people in our community. So here are just some pictures I thought I'd share from our grantees that is just, pictures from events, from them distributing food. So they were distributing turkeys for Thanksgiving. They were distributing food for Christmas. They were, giving it to elders, tons of stuff. I'll give you guys a minute to just look at all the pictures. I have a lot more, but these were just a few that I liked. So one of the things to bear in mind is it's going to take a long time for the community in general to recover from COVID. There have been a lot of lines and comparisons to the Great Recession drawn. We kind of suspect that the recovery landscape from COVID is likely to look like the Great Recession. And if you look at this, you can see that the people in the lowest 10%, most of the poor people in the country took the longest to recover. And in fact, some of them barely did. Like if you look at this data, rich people kind of bounced back fairly immediately from the recession. Not so much for the poor and the food insecure. So that all being said, let's talk about Afghan Health Initiative for a second. They are one of our food fund grantees that I wanted to highlight today because they are going through a tough time right now, as I'm sure you guys can imagine, because of what's going on right now in Afghanistan. There are a lot of Afghans currently entering our community. Afghan Health Initiative has been around for a long time. They're led by a team of public health professionals and educators and community leaders. They have a ton of different programs, not just in doing health, although health is their primary one. And I know them because of their emergency food distribution. but they also do childcare, civic engagement, environmental justice, economic independence, and education. They help with housing. They help with resource connection, and they have a lot of youth programming. And these are some specific pictures from both from the Food Fund and from their site that I thought would be nice to share with you all. In terms of with the Food Fund, they fed about 150 families with an average household size of 5 in 2020, which they estimated to be 750 to 1,200 individuals who were receiving weekly food from Afghan Health Initiative. Now in July 2020, you'll notice that that family amount has doubled, and that was in July. So we know that there are hundreds of refugees who are arriving daily. Afghan Health Initiative is one of the kind of pillars in the community that is helping to support those refugees with housing and emergency finances, food, healthcare, other resettlement assistance. I have not received their next report yet, but I am expecting that that number is going to grow. So I thought a good use of me having this pulpit would be to highlight them and let you know that they're there. And they are one of the organizations in the area who are doing a lot to sort of address the need for culturally appropriate food, especially halal food. There's a big, big need in the county for halal food, which they are helping to answer, as well as, feeding people in need who are resettling. So that was everything I had for you. So at this point, I'll open the floor if anybody wants to hit me with some questions or talk about anything. I'll just open that floor for you now.
I do see Anand's hand raised. You wanted to ask a question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Thanks, Casey, for this presentation. It was really helpful. So when new refugees come into the state, how do they actually, how does Afghan Health Initiative connect with them? Like, or how do they become aware that there's such an organization helping them?
So, well, it's kind of the nature of them being a major CBO in the area, right? So they're being flown in by an aid network of some kind, and they are already plugged to CBOs in the CBOs, community-based organization. They're already plugged into CBOs in the area, and Afghan Health Initiative is kind of one of the major Afghani resource distribution centers in the area. So essentially, they're already on the line as the point of contact for when refugees land on the ground. So I guess kind of in the same way that, like, if you call 211, 211 knows that United Way of King County is the organization that you ask for help if you need help in the county. So they just forward it to us. So it's kind of, if you think about it that way, it's relational. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thanks.
See, Jacob, go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a question about the scale of food insecurity in King County. So say we were to address it entirely and just eradicate food insecurity, how much funding would that require? And then like how much is the community food fund like addressing that volume, I guess? Does that make sense?
It does, but I think that that's the wrong way to look at it, because the root of food insecurity is in and underemployment. It's in low wages. It's in high inflation. It's in the high cost of food. The solution to food insecurity, now, my opinion, and the opinion I've read in USDA reports, it isn't necessarily that emergency food distribution is the solution. It's just the stopgap, because there isn't enough food going directly into people's wallets for them to afford the food that they need. So that isn't really an answerable question. And especially when you think about it, right? The food banks, like I said, and those are one of the primary food distribution methods. They only provide one meal for every 12 SNAP does. So the answer to some degree is the federal government needs to raise the income cap to about 300 to 400% of the poverty line. And they need to increase benefits because it's not like if you're on SNAP, no matter where you are in the income level, it's not like you automatically receive max benefits. You might qualify for it, right? Because you make like $12,000, but because you make $12,000 and that's like $300 less than the poverty line, you're gonna get like $12 a month. So
Yeah, I guess
so
I guess
sorry,
what I'm trying to understand is like what like the scale of the problem is in some kind of like dollar figure. I understand like just buying people food is not going to fix underlying causes to food insecurity, but I'm curious if we were to like reach out to our networks and say like, hey, this is how big of a problem this is, and hopefully use that as kind of like motivation to raise money. I guess that's more of my interest in understanding that.
Well, so here, I guess, and I'll answer kind of the second question you had, right? When you were talking about the community food fund. So the community food fund targets community centers. So, you know, we fund like the East African Community Center. We fund the Greater Eritrean Association in Seattle. We fund the Filipino Community Center, Casa Latina, a couple of other Spanish organizations. So these are nodes that people know they can get resources from. And a similar metaphor would be in maybe homeless resources. People know that they can go to Compass, and Compass Housing Alliance will help them with emergency resources. The same way people know United Way can help with emergency resources. And often these kinds of communities, especially immigrant refugee communities, they don't trust outside entities, especially government agencies. So they don't go to places like the food bank. They don't apply to SNAP. They go to their community center that is run by people from their own country who speak their own language, who they trust. So to some degree, part of the solution is we give money to community-based organizations who already have the relationships with people who need help, who those people are going to for help, and who know what kind of food they need. Because one of the things what was happening, right, is like even if you gave the food banks a ton of money, they don't know they need to buy halal food. They don't know they need to buy vegetarian food. So they don't. And people don't donate it either. That's the other thing. Like, you know, even if they spent 10% of their money buying halal food, 90% of their food resources isn't from food they bought. It's from donated food. So people to some degree need to stop donating chips. So hopefully that kind of helps fill in the picture for you a little bit.
I guess a little bit, yeah.
If there's other stuff that you are wondering, like it's a complicated problem.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, so like when I guess my last point is I'm just looking for like when I try to raise money from my network, I just need like a few kind of summary level bullets, like something that's going to grab somebody's attention, and like I'm not able to explain the nuance.
Okay.
You know, so that's what I'm kind of looking at. Is just like how can I land how big of an issue this is in the county quickly. That's all.
Quickly, okay. Well, you can think of it like this. There are a lot of niche populations in the county that are suffering, but all kind of for different reasons. Seniors, children, indigenous people, Black people who are like refugees, African Americans, Hispanic people. They're not going into a central aid bucket. They're going into a lot of little buckets for help. But those little buckets aren't really getting food or the funding that they need. So if you fill the little buckets, it helps to feed everyone who are taking from the little buckets.
Okay.
Does that help?
Yeah, that helps.
Okay. Any other questions or thoughts anyone would like to share?
Yeah, I mean, just from the numbers perspective, like does Afghan Health Initiative have any numbers on like the number of refugees coming into Washington State? Like, I guess that would help probably uh, Jacob's cause of saying compared to last year, we had these many refugees coming into Washington State, and that's why we need to, make them food secure.
Yeah, they don't, right now, the stats aren't in because this is a pretty new problem, but they are currently reporting that there are hundreds a day. So that's
Right.
hundreds a day, which is a lot of new people to be entering the county, drawing from food resources. I imagine in a couple months, we could look for larger statistics, but I think it is too early in this crisis to have macro stats yet. We're in the early stages.
I guess one question from my end, really fascinating to see, I guess, the multifaceted nature of food insecurity, things that I just hadn't really thought about in terms of like the unique communities and their needs. Now, one of the things that you got at to me, I mean, like many problems, it seems like a very systemic issue. And so I'm curious to hear your thoughts or to learn a little bit more about different ways, I guess, United Way or other partner organizations in King County are approaching food insecurity other than, donations to food banks directly, but also looking at how you, I guess, get at the systemic nature of it and like what the key focus areas are.
Cool. Well, I'm glad you asked because it allows me an opportunity to do some self-advertisement. So one of our ways is our free tax campaign. So every year, United Way of King County goes out and we do people's taxes 100% for free. And funnily enough, if you think about it, one of the primary socialized wealth redistribution systems we have in this country are tax credits. Now, people don't think of it that way, but that is what they are because when we look at things like the child tax credit or the EITC or any of the other major tax credits, most of them are geared towards if you're old or if you have kids, which is, also just so happens to be the same people who most experience and feel poverty. So by participating in free tax services, people shouldn't pay to get their taxes done. That's dumb. Like I'm sorry, but unless you're doing complicated business taxes, you're getting ripped off if you're paying any money to do your own taxes. And also, frankly, a lot of people don't really understand taxes. They're weird and confusing. So we go out into communities, we work with community-based organizations like Seattle Public Library or like smaller organizations like El Centro de la Raza. We show up, we bring the knowledge base people need, we do their taxes for them, we explain taxes, we try to educate people in that area if they're interested in getting tax training. But I'm just sort of espousing on my program, and if anybody wants to join, let me know. But also, we've got stuff like United Way also does rental assistance. United Way helps do SNAP education sharing and also participates in talking to the government, advocating for better SNAP benefits. And in Washington State, by the way, it's called basic food. But most people know it as SNAP if you're not from Washington. So that's why I'm calling it SNAP, just for ease of communication. We also have partnered with DoorDash to help get food distribution to people. We have our summer meals program, which helps give kids food in the summer, summer meals. We have even more programs than that, but those are the major ones that I'm connected with. We also have some homeless advocacy stuff that we do, but that starts to move beyond my general knowledge level. These are the ones I'm directly involved in. So Lindsay, Jessica, Asma, I'm sure you know more than I do in some ways, but so you guys can feel free to answer that too. Those are the programs I know most about.
Yeah, no, I would just like to add that along with those, I think that at the root of that, we really focus on the education piece because that's where we're able to reach folks and get them to participate, advocate, share with their network. So that education is really important. I think I'll also add that we include some of this in our public policy agenda as well. So we're always working at this at a systemic level. So those are some areas as well. Yeah. And I think if no one else has any questions, I do want to move on to our fundraising piece, just so we don't run out of time here. But if anyone has any additional questions, Casey, I don't know if you're available by email. Maybe folks can shoot you an education-based question if something comes to mind, and we can provide that information maybe in the chat, the email.
Yeah, I can pop my email in there.
All right, thanks so much, Casey. That was wonderful. Yeah, and Lindsay, please go ahead and take it away.
Sure. Yeah, that's actually a great segue into the fundraising portion because so much about fundraising is really about storytelling and connecting with our donors about these topics. So let me go ahead and get my screen shared. And if you all could let me know if you're seeing that all right. Perfect. Thumbs up. All right, I'll try and keep an eye in the chat, but feel free to jump right in. If you have a question, unmute yourself or throw a hand up and I'll try to get to that as quickly as I can. So to start off with as a little agenda, today we're going to be talking about what Emerging Leaders 365 is and why we're asking you to fundraise for that. We're going to touch on a little bit of racial equity in our Connect for Good project, which we just kind of talked about a little bit, but we'll dive a little bit deeper there on what that means for fundraising. And then we'll walk through our fundraising platform and then some tips to be a successful fundraiser, as well as wrapping up with the timeline and my contact information for further questions. So the overarching goal today is really just to walk through creating your fundraising pages in Classy and make sure that you all feel good in doing that. And then in the next session, we'll kind of dive a little bit deeper onto messaging and how fundraising is going for you. And I can answer any questions about that at that time. So to kick things off, I thought maybe a little icebreaker would be helpful to think about a time that you've either fundraised, made a meaningful gift, or just talk about what inspired you to join this project if you haven't done either one of those things. Like I mentioned, so much about this is really just relationship building and storytelling about what inspires and impacts you. So if all of you could just take a moment to think about this question and maybe one or two of you could pop in the chat or share out loud, that would be great. And I think Asma had maybe mentioned that a few of you, this might not be your first Connect for Good project. So if you've done a Connect for Good in the past with us, I'd love to call on you and hear how that experience went for you the first time around as well.
I don't know if I can answer, but I thought maybe I might start. I just thinking back to one of the first times I fundraised, and I think it was particularly for United Way. It was a really great way for folks to learn about United Way and provide that, again, education, because I feel like that's where we were always centered. And I felt pretty empowered being able to like share with my networks. Folks were connecting with me to learn more and ultimately feeling like I made like a larger impact. That was really important for me. So that was a really good feeling. First time I was able to fundraise, especially for United Way.
That's great. Yeah, thanks so much for jumping in.
I could also jump in and say that my first time participating in Connect for Good when I was fundraising, I think one of the things for me that I really tried to emphasize with it was my personal connection to the cause. Now, that might not always be the case that you have a direct link to the cause in terms of your own experience, but I found that like talking about kind of what you've caught out here about why it was important to me and my own relationship with the cause that we were fundraising for at the time was really impactful for just generating awareness with other folks and getting them interested in contributing to the cause financially. So I'm sure we'll talk more about how to set up your campaign and all that stuff, but that was really impactful for me.
That's so great.
Just to add on to what Charles said, I haven't actually done any fundraising in the past myself, so I'm excited to try it out this time. But I think what motivates me and what I've seen probably is the same with others is that like kind of whether or not you have a personal connection to a cause, but just understanding more about a specific area where there's an issue. I think learning more about the food insecurity problems in our area kind of helps to understand the impact that your contribution would have and kind of, I don't know, makes you more, I don't know, ready to give, I guess.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we'll talk about it a little bit more in messaging a little later, but I'm wondering if maybe I can partner up with Casey to even give you all a couple of bullet points or a sample message for y'all to be using.
That
kind
would
of
be
figure
really
out. Yeah, because of what Jacob's question was earlier as well. So yeah, those are all great things. And I'm glad that some of you have had experience and this might be some of yours first experience. So hopefully I can support you all as you go ahead and create your pages to be first time or returning fundraisers. So I'll go ahead and move us along, but feel free to pop anything else in the chat as it comes up. I want to take a moment to go over our Emerging Leaders 365 program. So Emerging Leaders 365 is a group of young professionals that support United Way of King County through coming together to donate, volunteer, and network. So through this group, I'm sure many of you may be familiar, but if you're not, there's a lot of opportunities to give, to volunteer, and to also just like network through events with other leaders in the community and just really get a higher level of connection to our work through networking with other folks with similar interests and backgrounds. And so Connect for Good is one of those ways that we offer emerging leaders to give back to their community by really engaging that education piece and then also fundraising and then the volunteer project at the very end, which should be a good follow-up. And then Emerging Leader 365 donors, there's a variety of options to give. Some folks choose to give the whole lump sum at one time. Some choose to do $30 a month. And last year we collectively raised over $900,000 for this group. So it really is just doing a lot of work in that collective impact arena. And then another way to hit that 365 goal and to become an emerging leader is to actually fundraise through a peer-to-peer fundraiser, which is what this Connect for Good provides the opportunity for. So if you hit the 365 goal through this project, you will be classified as an emerging leader and gain access to all those other volunteer projects, events, and other networking opportunities. Why are we asking you to fundraise? So this project combines education, fundraising, and volunteering to have an impact on the community. So I think Casey gave a really great overview on what this project is and why it is important to consider the Community Food Fund in relation to your personal values and goals and to helping the community. As a group, we'll work together to collectively raise hopefully over $2,500 with United Way in support of the Community Food Fund. So this goal is a little bit conservative. It would be if all participants raise their 365 goal. And I know that we might have a few more people join in after this session before the second session. So I'll be in communication with you all if that goal goes up or goes down. The default goal when you go ahead and set up your fundraising page will be 365, but I want to encourage all of you to be ambitious. And if you feel like raising more than that, maybe setting a $500 goal or a $1,000 goal, shoot as high as you want to, and we'll hopefully find our goal at the very end there and make some good progress. And then peer-to-peer fundraising is a unique opportunity to advocate within your network. So really, advocating within your work or personal network to share about the causes that you care about and to be able to use your voice and your passion to connect others to community causes in our community. Also, it's Give Month, so hopefully everyone's really jazzed about getting involved and giving. So that's another incentive to help out with this peer-to-peer fundraising effort. So I want to touch quickly on racial equity in our project. Racial equity in fundraising language is really important. And so I do have a link here that I'll share out either in the chat after this or I'll send a follow-up email. We want to avoid language that invokes charity and pity towards others and instead focus on how this work is addressing racial equity and the systemic causes of these inequities. So when talking about people served in the program, we want to use terms like BIPOC households, communities of color, and avoid using other language such as minorities or diverse populations. And the style guide that I can share will give you just a few more guidelines on how to use an active voice and people first language and to really prioritize those communities when sharing your outreach and crafting the messaging that you want to share when reaching out to your networks. Here at United Way, we've also moved to a more community-centric model of fundraising instead of donor-centric, which means that we're just really power sharing and trying to uplift the communities that we're serving instead of focusing more on like the donor impact, if that makes sense. And one of those pillars of community-centered fundraising is really being mutually supportive within the nonprofit sector. So as Casey highlighted, we are going to be working to support the Afghan Health Initiative, and then also utilizing our network to connect our donors to these other organizations to either volunteer their hours, which will be a component of this project, or donate money to support that cause. So really just trying to be mutually supportive in that aspect as well. And there's also a link on community-centric fundraising if any of you are interested that I could share, just to do a little bit more reading on that as well. So our fundraising platform, I have a link that I can share, but I figured it would be good just to give you like the quick basics on what this will look like when you go ahead and start your fundraising page. So with this link, you will be brought to a page that is just an overall Connect for Good page, and you'll want to start by becoming a fundraiser. And then when it prompts you to start fundraising, you want to select to join a team. So we've already created a team page for this Connect for Good project, and you'll be able to find that by using any of the keywords that are in the title, which is the Microsoft Connect for Good supporting refugees. And again, I'll send out all this information in an email. That way it makes it really clear how to access this, this link and everything. And then when you go to start fundraising, you'll be prompted to either log in or create an account. So for those of you who have engaged on a project similar to this in the past, you'll probably want to log in. And for those of you for which this will be new, you'll want to create a new account, which will just ask you to provide some really basic contact information, your name, your email, and just confirm that this is the project that you'll want to be working on. And from there, you'll be prompted to set up your classy page underneath this project. So I put a little example of my own fundraising page on here, and some things that you'll want to keep in mind that you may want to start thinking about now as we move through the rest of this presentation is how to kind of personalize this page to work best for your network and your outreach. So some things that you'll be prompted to fill out and that you'll need are a short page headline. I chose something like raising funds for the community food fund. And whatever you pick, you can always change later, so you're not stuck with that for the term of this project. But think about something that would be meaningful for you that you would want your folks to see right when they log into your page to see what that headline would be. You can also create a short URL, which would be great for sharing in emails or social media. So you can pick something catchy like Lindsay's fundraiser or community food fund, just something that you think that you'll remember that you can easily share out to folks when you're guiding them to your page. A photo of yourself, so it's a fun opportunity to get creative and sort of add like a little personal touch to your page so you can let folks know who you are. And I think I had connected with one of you about setting up a team page as well. So the steps would all be the same for setting up a common page for a team, and then you can choose, a logo or a team photo to put in that that space as well. And then your goal. So the goal will be defaulted to 365 when you set up your fundraising page. But then if you go in to modify your page later, you can change that goal. So again, I would encourage you all to think about what would be attainable for you and what might be something that you might want to reach for. If it's more than 365, I would encourage you to go for it. And then if not, the 365 goal will be there as a default. So that's a personal page, and you can see how there'll be a little bar at the top that'll show you the dollars raised in proportion to your goal. And then you'll also be able to see here any updates, your donors that have given to your page, the comments they have left you, anything like that. And the team page, which you'll be able to access through your own personal page, will give you the overall scope of the project. So you'll see what our total dollars are raised from everyone's fundraising pages, what our total goal is, as well as a brief little explanation of the project. So some more information on the community food fund will be there, donations made to your page, and then comments left by donors. So it's really a good place to go to see what donors are saying about things. Maybe take a look at other people's pages to see what is resonating with their network as well. Yeah, and then I'll be also sending out reminders and links to this page so we can all keep an eye on it together as well. And so here's just a list of a few tips for successful fundraising. So you want to create an outreach plan. It can seem kind of simple, but really taking 5 to 10 minutes to sit down and think about who you might want to reach out to at what point, and how you might want to encourage folks to give to your fundraising goal or to volunteer their time. And so creating the outreach plan, I have a little template that I can share. It's very basic, just thinking about like names and what might resonate with them. Also when you reach out, you might want to emphasize your timeline and goal, and then you'll want to celebrate your milestones as well. So being really specific around the project that you're supporting, and then also what your goal is to raise, or maybe how close you are to getting there, may be especially important around the halfway point of the month, to say, we're so close to getting there, I could really use your support. Things like that might be helpful. And then starting with close friends and family, it's always really, really easy to kind of like dip your toe in there and kind of practice your pitch, practice what your messaging will be with folks that are closely aligned with your values and who might be closer to the community as well. You want to personalize your page. So we kind of talked about how to do that, and then personalizing the message. You might want to insert like a personal story. What really resonated with you from the Community Food Fund or with the Afghan Health Initiative? Maybe what inspired you to give or get involved with United Way, really connecting people to what inspires you might help them also feel inspired to connect with that and give. You want to include some visuals, which hopefully we can help out with. So maybe we saw some great ones in Casey's presentation. Maybe we can even get some of those out to you as well to kind of help with the framing of this messaging. And then just remembering that all donation amounts help you reach your goal. And something I forgot to include here was that the matching funds, which will be given through Microsoft, can also count towards your goal as well. And I'll send this out in the email reminder as well. But if you send me the confirmation via email of the donation, then I can book those matching funds as offline gifts to your page. That way they'll still show up there as you make progress on your goal. And last but not least, thanking your donors. So all donors will receive a classy receipt for tax purposes and like a little thank you from the website within 48 hours. But it'll also be really great to thank your donors in a timely manner. That way they know that you've seen their gift, it's helping them reach your goal and that their support was appreciated. So I'll wrap up here with a little timeline. So tonight's the first session where we saw an overview of the Community Food Fund and a brief fundraising overview. And then between now and next Tuesday, you should expect to receive 3 emails from me. So this afternoon, I'll get you a recap of all the information on how to start your fundraising page and some of these tips. By this Friday, I'm hoping to send you all an email to do an individual check-in to see how your pages are going and if you have any questions about the setup or the ongoing goal. And then I'll send out another session reminder before our next session on Tuesday. And then we'll hear some more about the volunteer activities and the Afghan Health Initiative. And then beyond then, the options to keep fundraising and continue volunteering will be available to you all. So closing, I'd like to open the floor for any questions. And then here's my contact information, and I would be happy to follow up on anything that comes up here.
So is October 31st the last date for fundraising?
Yes, yeah, I believe that this project will be going through October 31st, just through the month of October. Yeah, and I think Jacob and Holly have their hands up, so whichever one of you wants to jump in.
Holly, go ahead. I already asked a couple questions earlier. But
It might be a dumb question. So you mentioned match and how we can kind of share with you offline and you can acknowledge it. Exactly what qualifies for match here? Like if my mom, this might be a Microsoft policy question, so I don't know if Charles and Rahi can correct me, but if my mom gives me $20 for this, can I donate it and make it $40 through Microsoft, or is that something that we're not supposed to be doing?
Yeah, I'll take that one. So for what it's worth, yes, like that is okay. We've had volunteers in the past who've approached us differently. So if you want to be the person to manage funds, you can get creative. I will say I'll use that term, get creative. We've had folks who have said like, hey, rather than donate directly to this page, like send me your money via Venmo and then I'll donate to the page and then request the match from Microsoft. I'm not asking anyone to feel like you have to take that on. If you want to, however, and you want to make the donation in your name and that way you can claim the Microsoft match, that's fine. And then the flip side of it, if you are getting donations from Microsoft employees, what we've typically had them do is as a follow-up to them making a donation to your campaign, be sure to follow up with them and ask them to go request the match from Microsoft because they do get that. And then what we've done in the past, and perhaps Lindsay, you and I could talk about this, but what we did last time was if you had, like I said, a Microsoft employee make a donation to your campaign and then they requested the match from Microsoft, we would just manually update the Classy page to also include the Microsoft match so we could track the full amount of what you were able to fundraise with the including the Microsoft match. so we could give you credit for the full amount. So again, some creative policies here. Like I said, we'll have a Teams channel if you have questions, and myself and others can help answer any questions you might have about those things.
Sure. So I'm guessing the general guidance is don't broadcast that I am matching through Microsoft. But if my mom wanted to pay me through Venmo because she's not good with URLs, that might actually be better in some instances where I can get it matched.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep, that makes sense. One other question: when we are doing the match through Benetivity or Give, are we doing it directly to United Way of Kansas City, or is there a specific like subset for the health fund?
I think you meant King County.
King County, Kansas City is what I said. Sorry, that's right.
I'll defer to United Way on that one. Typically speaking, I believe the answer is yes, but let me know if there is another sub. I believe like we can only request matches, sorry, to 501c3, and I believe that would be underneath United Way of King County, but let me know if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I believe that sounds right. And I think that was actually a question that came to some of our teammates today, if there was a designation for that. And at this time, I don't believe that there is, but I'll definitely put that in like a little parking lot of questions that I'll address either over the Teams channel or in the follow-up email, just to verify what that should be.
Yeah.
And what? Oh,
sorry, Charles. On that one, like I know, like on the Benevity page, like United Way of King County has separate causes you can donate to. Like I remember there was one for the COVID relief fund. So I was just similar to Holly's question. I'd be curious if there's something like that we'd want to do for the community food fund as well.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think let me talk to Mike Brewer about it and see what our options are. But I think what we might end up doing is for any of the matches that are requested through Benevity, just indicating in your like donation comp or match request to the charity, like what the match is for, if you want to let United Way know like this is part of the fundraising effort for Connect for Good for supporting refugees in the Community Food Fund. And then that way that is attached to the match request that will ultimately be sent to United Way. But let me follow up, like I said, with Mike and see if there's a better way to do it.
I had a couple questions as well. Lindsay, on the fundraising, should we be trying to get people into the Emerging Leaders 365, or should we just be trying to raise one-time donations, or does it matter? Or should we do them both? I don't know. Is there kind of
I mean, I would say whatever speaks to you. If you have folks that you think would be interested in engaging in a giving community where they could network and have these opportunities themselves, I think it would be definitely like a great thing to share. That's one of the really great things about the Emerging Leader 365 program is that you can get your network involved in that. But if you think that you might have more success or engaging your friends and family's interest in joining that may be a little bit lower, then definitely one-time donations would be okay as well. I would say go with what feels right.
Okay, cool. And second question, is there like a link? Is there any public information on the Community Food Fund that we could plop a URL on our fundraising page just so people can learn more?
Yeah, I think we should be able to give you a link to something on our website. I'm not sure what's currently there at this time, but I would definitely also defer to Casey to see what she would think about that. But we can work together to get you the information that was in the slides tonight, and then also maybe something that's on our website or a blog post that would be helpful in that as well.
Yeah, and like I know the Community Food Fund raises or distributes funds to I think 27 organizations, not just the Afghan Health Initiative, unless we're just donating for Afghan Health Initiative with this money. But I'd be curious if we could also see what those 27 organizations are as well. That'd be great.
Right. Yeah, that's a great question, and I'd be happy to follow up on that. And just so we're all clear, the donations for the Class C fundraising section of this will be going to the Community Food Fund, of which the Afghan Health Initiative is a recipient of. And so overall, we're going to be fundraising for that fund as a whole. And so the volunteer project will really drill down into supporting them specifically. But yeah, I will be sure to follow up on you with that with you. That way, you have some more information on who else may be supporting in that work.
Great. That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on the fundraising portion? All right. Well, thanks so much. I'll be in touch via the Teams channel and email, and then I'll hand it back off to Ozma to finish it all up for us.
Great. Thanks, Lindsay. Really appreciate that. And just like Casey, you all can just reach out to Lindsay if you have any fundraising specific questions. Great. So with all of that great information, we're going to be going this week into fundraising mode and really focusing on connecting with your networks to fundraise. And upcoming in our second session, we will give you some background on some of the volunteer opportunities you can participate in. So we will have 2 optional volunteer opportunities. I think most of you all are familiar, but we do have a kitchen starter kits project where we can collect kitchen items to put in a kit to donate to Afghan Health Initiative so they can distribute to incoming refugees in the area. And then we have in-person opportunities where you can sign up via a document that Afghan Health Initiative has created to be notified if you can support with things like airport pickups, apartment setup, things like that. So we will go a little bit more into depth into what those projects look like in our second session. But I think for now, that might be all for this session. Do we have any questions before we wrap up? Really appreciate all of you being here today.
No, I just want to plug in and say like it's very easy to create the fundraising pages. And I was actually gladly surprised. When I was first fundraising, I thought like, yeah, I don't know if I can meet the goal. But both times I raised over $900. So yeah,
Wow.
it can make a lot of difference. So
Yeah.
you don't need to be like, if you're like, oh no, I'm afraid to reach out and I don't know if anyone will donate, you'll be surprised.
Yeah, thank you for that, Anand. I think the point you're making is that you are all capable of way more than we might think we are. So good luck out there. And remember that we're here as resources. If you have any questions at all, please reach out. And thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.